In 1941, the battleship HMS King George V sat at anchor in the great naval base of Scapa Flow. To anyone watching from the shoreline, she appeared immense and almost motionless, a towering mass of armor plate, gun turrets, and radar masts rising from the grey waters of the harbor. Displacing more than 35,000 tons, she represented the most advanced battleship design the Royal Navy possessed at the time. 10 14-inch guns were mounted in massive armored turrets. Thick belts of steel protected her vital areas. Deep within the hull were powerful engines capable of driving the ship through the ocean at more than 28 knots. From the outside, the ship looked like a machine built purely from steel. But in reality, the true machinery of a battleship was human. A battleship required a crew of roughly 1,600 men to function properly. Without them, the ship could not move, could not navigate, and could not fight. Every system aboard depended on trained personnel working together across dozens of departments. Running a battleship was less like operating a vehicle and more like managing a small floating city. Every man had a specific role, and those roles had to function together with precision. If even a few parts of that system failed, the consequences during combat could be severe. To understand how a battleship actually worked, it helps to look at the people who made it operate. At the top of the ship's superstructure was the bridge. This was the command center of the vessel and the place where the captain directed the ship's movements. Although the captain held ultimate authority, running the ship required a team of officers working together. One of the most important among them was the navigator. During the Second World War, there were no satellite navigation systems. Determining a ship's position relied on traditional tools such as sextants, compasses, chronometers, and detailed maritime charts. The navigator used these instruments to calculate the ship's exact location by measuring the position of the sun, moon, and stars. These calculations were essential when operating in dangerous waters such as the North Atlantic, where storms, reefs, and minefields posed constant risks. Alongside the navigator worked the officer of the watch. This officer supervised the ship's immediate operations while on duty. He monitored the surrounding sea, maintained the ship's course, and ensured that lookouts remained alert for possible threats. Lookouts and signalmen played an important supporting role. Lookouts scanned the horizon with binoculars, searching for enemy ships, submarines, or aircraft. Their job required long hours of concentration in harsh weather conditions. Signalmen handled visual communication between ships. Using colored flags during the day and flashing signal lamps at night, they passed messages across the fleet without relying on radio transmissions that could reveal their position to enemy listeners. Together, these personnel ensured the battleship could move safely and maintain coordination with other ships. The primary purpose of a battleship was to deliver powerful naval gunfire. On the King George V, this responsibility belonged to the gunnery department. The ship's 10 14-inch guns were among the largest weapons carried by any vessel in the Royal Navy. Each shell weighed more than 700 kilograms and could travel over 20 kilometers. However, operating these guns required far more than simply pulling a trigger. Accurate long-range fire depended on complex calculations. Deep inside the ship was the transmitting station, a protected compartment where fire control specialists operated the Admiralty Fire Control Table. This was an advanced mechanical computer designed to calculate firing solutions in real time. Operators continuously fed information into the system. This included the ship's speed, the enemy ship's bearing, wind direction, air density, and even the role of the vessel in heavy seas. Using rotating gears and mechanical linkages, the system predicted where the target would be by the time a shell arrived. Those calculations were then transmitted electrically to the gun turrets. Inside each turret, a team of sailors handled the loading and firing of the guns. Shells and propellant charges were lifted from storage areas deep in the ship through armored hoists. Below the turrets were the magazines, where ammunition was stored under strict safety procedures. Magazine crews carefully handled both shells and cordite propellant charges. Safety was critical in these compartments because an accidental ignition could destroy the entire ship. During combat, these crews worked continuously, moving ammunition from the magazines to the guns as quickly as possible. Far below the decks, in the deepest sections of the hull, was the engineering department. This was the area responsible for generating the power that moved the ship. Battleships used a steam turbine propulsion system driven by 8 large Admiralty boilers. These boilers produced extremely high-pressure steam that powered turbines connected to the ship's propeller shafts. The engineers and stokers who worked in these spaces faced demanding conditions. Boiler rooms were hot, noisy environments filled with pipes, valves, and constantly operating machinery. Unlike earlier warships, these boilers burned oil rather than coal. Stokers controlled fuel injectors that sprayed oil into the furnace chambers. Maintaining the correct fuel mixture ensured efficient combustion and maximum engine performance. Another important responsibility was smoke control. Excessive smoke from the funnels could make the ship visible from long distances, potentially revealing its position to enemy aircraft or submarines. Engineers had to balance power output with careful fuel management to reduce this risk. The engine rooms contained the turbines themselves. These machines converted steam energy into rotational power that turned the propellers. Together, the engines could produce over 100,000 horsepower, allowing the battleship to maintain high speeds during combat operations. Engineering crews worked around the clock in shifts to monitor gauges, regulate pressure levels, and perform maintenance on the complex machinery. Without their constant attention, the ship simply could not operate. During the early years of the Second World War, naval technology was evolving rapidly. One of the most important developments was radar. The King George V was equipped with early radar systems designed to detect ships and aircraft at long distances. Radar operators worked in small compartments filled with electronic equipment. Their job was to monitor glowing cathode ray displays that showed echoes of nearby objects. Interpreting these signals required training and experience. A faint return on the screen might represent an approaching aircraft or a distant ship. Radar gave warships an important advantage, especially during poor visibility or nighttime operations. Alongside the radar operators were the ship's radio specialists. Wireless telegraphists maintained communication with naval command and other vessels in the fleet. They transmitted and received Morse code messages using radio equipment. However, these messages were usually encrypted. Coders used complex cipher systems to convert ordinary language into coded signals that enemy forces could not easily understand. Incoming transmissions had to be decoded before officers could act on the information. Together, radar and radio communications formed the information network of the battleship. They allowed the ship to detect threats, coordinate with other vessels, and receive instructions from naval headquarters. Operating a ship with 1,600 crew members required careful planning and organization. The supply department managed the food, equipment, and everyday necessities needed to support the crew. Large refrigerated storage areas held meat and other perishable foods. Dry storage spaces contained canned goods, flour, tea, and other staples. The cooks worked long hours in the ship's galley preparing meals for the entire crew. Food was served in shifts because the mess halls could not accommodate everyone at once. Meals were simple but designed to provide enough energy for physically demanding work. Typical items included fish, stews, bread, and traditional naval puddings. In addition to food services, many other support roles existed aboard the ship. Clerks handled paperwork related to pay, discipline, and personnel records. Medical staff operated the sick bay, treating illnesses and injuries among the crew. Mail distribution was another important task. Letters from home were often the most valued items sailors received during long deployments at sea. These everyday services helped maintain morale and ensure the crew remained healthy and organized. A distinctive group aboard Royal Navy battleships was the Royal Marines. These troops served as soldiers assigned to naval vessels. Their duties included security, ceremonial functions, and combat roles during battle. Marines guarded important areas of the ship such as ammunition magazines and the captain's quarters. They also enforced discipline when necessary. Traditionally, Royal Marines were responsible for operating one of the ship's gun turrets. This meant they trained alongside naval gunners and participated directly in combat operations. Another well-known group aboard many battleships was the Royal Marine Band. In peacetime, the band performed music during ceremonies and official events. During wartime, however, its members also trained for additional duties. These included assisting medical teams by carrying stretchers and helping evacuate wounded sailors during battle. At sea, the battleship was far more than a collection of weapons and armor. It was a highly organized system powered by human effort. Every department depended on the others. Navigation guided the ship safely across the ocean. Engineering produced the power to move it. Gunnery delivered its firepower. Communications connected it to the wider fleet. Supply and medical teams supported the crew's daily needs. And throughout the vessel, 1,600 sailors worked continuously to keep the ship functioning. Each man had a specific responsibility, but together they formed a coordinated team capable of operating one of the most complex machines of the Second World War. The steel hull, the engines, and the guns were only part of the story. The true strength of a battleship came from the people who operated it. Without them, even the most powerful warship would remain silent and motionless in the water. With them, it became one of the most formidable instruments of naval power ever created. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.